Adanna had finally been allowed to return to her village after Obinna, the spirit husband, gave her a bracelet as a parting gift. Though relieved to be free, something inside her felt unsettled. She had escaped, but had she truly broken the bond? Now let's continue her journey. Before we dive into this other part of the story, if you haven't watched the first part, I highly recommend you go back and watch it. Trust me, you don't want to miss any details. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video so more people can enjoy this intriguing African folktale. Adanna clutched the bracelet tightly as she stepped through the familiar paths leading to her village. The sun bathed the land in golden warmth, and the scent of burning firewood filled the air. She should have felt safe, but something felt wrong. As she reached the village, familiar faces turned to her in shock. Her mother dropped the calabash she was holding. "Adanna!" The people rushed towards her, some with joy, others with disbelief. She had been gone for months, disappeared without a trace. Her mother embraced her tightly, sobbing, "Where have you been, my child?" Adanna hesitated. Could she tell them the truth? That she had been married to a spirit? That the man she had loved wasn't even human? I got lost," she whispered. "But I found my way home." The village welcomed her back, but as the days passed, Adanna noticed strange things happening. At night, she would hear whispers in the wind calling her name. Shadows moved where there should be none. But worst of all, her dreams were no longer her own. At first, Adanna dismissed the strange occurrences as exhaustion from her ordeal. But the nightmares made it impossible to ignore. Every night, she found herself back in the spirit world, standing before Obinna. His golden eyes, once filled with warmth, now held a shadow of something darker. "Did you think you could leave me, Adanna?" His voice echoed through the dream. She woke up, gasping for air, drenched in sweat. The bracelet on her wrist felt warm. Too warm. It pulsed as if it was alive. By the third night, Adanna could no longer sleep. She sat awake by the dim glow of a lantern, staring at the bracelet, her heart pounding. Was Obinna trying to pull her back? Desperate for answers, Adanna went to the village elder, a respected priest named Dike. His hut smelled of ancient herbs and burning incense. As soon as she stepped inside, his expression darkened. "You carry the mark of the spirit world," he said. Adanna's throat went dry. "What do you mean?" Dike pointed at the bracelet. "This is no gift. It is a chain. You may have left the spirit world, but Obinna still owns you." Her heart pounded. "What do I do?" Dike sighed, his eyes heavy with concern. "You must sever the bond before it's too late. If not, he will come for you." The priest instructed Adanna to remove the bracelet and burn it under the light of a full moon. Only then she could be free. But when she tried to take it off, it wouldn't budge. The bracelet felt as if it had been fused to her skin. Fear gripped her. The village priest, Dike, watched grimly. "It is bound to your soul. To remove it, you must break Obinna's hold over you." Adanna swallowed hard. "How do I do that?" Dike stood and walked to a wooden chest, opening it to revive a small carved idol. A final ritual, but it will not be easy. "You must return to the river where you first met him. Only there can the bond be broken." Adanna felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Return to the river, the place where it all began. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over the bracelet. If she failed, Obinna would come for her. That night, Adanna packed a small sachet of herbs and offerings given to her by the priest. The village was quiet as she slipped away, walking the moonlight path towards the river. The air grew cooler with each step. The trees whispered, the wind carrying her name, Adanna. She stopped in her tracks, her breath hitching. A shadow moved behind her, not human, not natural. Her feet quickened, heart racing. She could feel something following her, but she could not look back. The water was calm, too calm, like a mirror reflecting the golden glow of the moon. Her pulse hammered as she stepped towards the edge, holding the idol close. She knelt, placing the idol before her. Spirits of my ancestors, hear me. I seek freedom from this bond. The wind roared in response. The river stirred, and then he appeared. Adanna took a shaky step back, gripping the idol in her hands. You came back, Obinna said, his voice smooth, but carrying an edge of something unreadable. She lifted her chin, forcing herself to be brave. I came to break this bond. Obinna's smile was slow. Is that truly what you want, Adanna? Her heart clenched. A part of her did not know how to answer. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us bring us more thrilling African stories. Now, let's continue. The river roared to life, water spiraling upwards in a towering column. From its depths, 3 figures emerged. 3 spirit judges, draped in flowing robes, their faces hidden beneath golden masks. Their voices echoed like distant thunder. A mortal seeks to break a spirit's claim. Let the trial begin. Adanna swallowed. A trial? Obinna watched her, his gaze unreadable. The first spirit lifted a hand. You must answer truthfully. Did you ever love him? The question struck her like a dagger. She hesitated. Had she? Obinna had stolen her away. But there had been moments when... No, she shook her head. I was enchanted, trapped in your world. That's not love. The second spirit stepped forward. Would you have ever stayed if given the choice? Another cruel question. She had once been tempted by Obinna's beauty, his wealth, his power, but she had also longed for home. The truth settled in her chest. No, I want to live among the living. A deep rumble shook the ground. The final spirit spoke. Then let the bond be broken if you can destroy what ties you together. Obinna's hand lifted, and in his palm lay the same golden bracelet that bound her wrists. Break it, he said, if you can. Before we move on, what do you think will happen next? Comment below. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. Her hand trembled as she reached for the bracelet. But the moment she touched it, a flood of memories consumed her. His hands brushing against hers under the moonlight. The warmth of his embrace in the golden kingdom, and whispers of promises of forever. She gasped, stumbling back. The weight of the emotion was suffocating. Adanna. Obinna's voice was softer now. You have to mean it. If you don't, the bond will never break. Tears welled up in her eyes. Had he ever truly loved her? She thought of her family, her people, and the life she was meant to have. With a scream, she raised the idol and smashed the bracelet to the ground. A deafening crack split the air. The world trembled. Obinna's eyes widened. A deep echoing roar shook the heavens. And then he began to fade. Obinna's body flickered like a dying flame. He reached for her, but his hands passed through hers. "You have chosen," he murmured. His voice was not angry, just hollow. She watched in stunned silence as the spirit turned to him. "The bond is severed. She is free." Obinna looked at her one last time. There was something in his gaze, a deep sorrow, or perhaps regret. Then, with a final gust of wind, he was gone. The river stilled. The night was silent. Adanna was alone. She looked down at her wrist. The bracelet had vanished. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Tears of relief, of grief, of something she could not yet name. She had won. She was free. But why did her heart feel so heavy? When Adanna returned to the village, she was not the same girl who had left. She had seen a world beyond the living, touched power beyond imagination. But she had also learned that freedom was the most precious gift of all. The villagers gathered around her, gasping at her return. "She has returned," the elders whispered. The priest stepped forward. "Did you succeed?" Adanna nodded. "Yes, it is over." The villagers cheered, but as they celebrated, Adanna only looked up at the stars, where she had last seen Obinna's golden eyes. And for the first time, she wondered if he too felt the loss. Before the final scene, have you subscribed yet? If not, hit the subscribe button now and stay tuned for more incredible African folktales. Late that night, as Adanna sat alone outside the hut, the wind shifted, and just for a moment, she thought she heard a soft voice, distant and filled with longing. "Adanna." She shivered, but when she turned, there was no one there. Only the moon watching from above, and the wind whispering secrets only she could hear. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe and share. Stay tuned for more intriguing African folktales right here on our channel. See you in the next story.